Hello there, I'm Dominic St-Pierre. You're listening to Go Podcast. I'm a, decent and I would dare say good software engineer. I've been writing Go for the last decade or so, maybe a little bit more. I started back in 2000. So this episode is all about me discovering something new that I'm very excited about, the Gleam programming language. So basically, I started looking at Gleam back in the days when it was still a ML kind of syntax. I even posted in the GitHub repo back then. It was a super long time ago. I was very excited about this. So yes, in this episode, I will try to convince you to look at it. Let's see. Before we dive into anything, I started a Patreon page as well. So if you ever want to support the show because you are, liking the show, you are getting some value out of it, you want to support me in doing this. Doing a podcast is not easy. It involves a lot of times and efforts and things like that, money even. There's also the Slack channel on the Go time. On the Gopher Slack, the Go Slack. There's a link in the podcast website. So gopodcast.dev. I'm not even sure. There's not much people that have joined. I'm very, very bad at maintaining a community myself. So I'm not even sure I will continue the channel. So I'm debating that at the moment. So before we dive into anything, I'd like to reiterate a little bit about why I chose Go back in 2015 or whatever, 2014. Back then, I've told the story multiple times. So I will not be very long here. So I was building a SaaS in Node.js back then, and one day I woke up and I was just tired about all those callback L. It was still the pre-promises era and things like that. So I woke up and I just decided, you know what, I will try this new language that I've heard about, and I was already starting to write a couple of things, and I was already kind of excited about it. So basically for me, it's all about the ergonomic of how it will allow me to maintain long-lived software. So I tend to brand myself as someone that have maintained software for a long time. So the oldest production system that I've maintained was 23 years old when another, basically it was Equifax that acquired one of my clients. I started there as an employee. So basically, I think I qualify for someone that can say, I'm used to maintain long-lived software. And I've also, built some software as a service and things like that reach 5-6 years, and that this is not long at all in comparison, but still, especially in a startup environment and things like that, things are moving very fast, and 6 years is still very great in the startup world. So when I evaluate languages that I want to try myself, and I want to see myself being productive and having some kind of excitement, because for me it's all about having fun, and it never really was a job. I was lucky enough, quote unquote lucky enough, to be able to create projects that I wanted to build for letting go of more money. So let me rephrase that a little bit. If I had worked at bigger organization all my careers, I think I would have made more money than what I've done so far. But for me, it was always about freedom and purpose in life and things like that. So I never really was tempted to try the enterprisey life, software engineer life and things like that. So what it made me is that I have created a lot of software in the last 25 years, and a lot of open source projects and a lot of things, basically, because it was basically my hobby, if you will, in a sense. So when I evaluate something, I immediately think about the things that I've lived myself, and it's all about making sure that a software can live long, making sure that I will have fun maintaining an application, because there's nothing worse than just feeling miserable when you are maintaining a software and things like that. So Gleam is appeared in my radar lately, and to be frank, since they have reached the V1, I've been, how it is. You see that on somewhere on the internet, and you say, oh, I will look at that later, and like 2-3 weeks or 1 month later, you continue to see that, and now it's increasing in your internal priority, saying that, oh, that is, that seems to be nice, I need to check it out and things like that. So after multiple months, I would say maybe years, I finally took some time and check it out. So I want to contrast that with a couple of languages that I've tried in the last, let's say, whatever, since the beginning of my careers, and I think there's a lot to say about Gleam already. So my initial experiences with professional programming was in the Microsoft ecosystem back in 2000. Basically, I started with VB6, and after that moved to .NET for almost a decade, maybe 15 years if you count when I was doing other thing on the side. But at the first of my career, well, it was basically on the Microsoft stack. I was fairly appreciative about the .NET ecosystem back then at first, especially moving from VB6. So VB6 was a totally different story for me, because the first experience I had with this stack was I joined a company they were at the end of this project, this 4 years project. It was crazy back then, but I joined, and I was there for the last year or so of development and the deployment. So it was going to change a production system. So employees, training and whatnot, and it was brutal. I know I've told that story, but long story short, we had to install the Visual what was it, Visual Studio back then? I don't recall. Visual Basic was installed on all the employees' PCs to run. So we, at first, the first month of the production stage for this, there were an icon of the desktop and of the employees, and basically they were compiling the application in the VB6, and it was starting. It was crazy. When I moved to .NET, well, things were a little bit better, from a junior developer point of view, where it was starting to make a little bit more sense to me, the way that especially the web was, because after that I was doing VB6 on the desktop and classic ASP on the server, and when I started .NET, well, it was the good old days with the view state and the run at server component and things like that. So it was not bad from my point of view, but soon enough it was pretty brutal. Again, I won't rehearse what I've said already on this podcast. I'm pretty vocal on Reddit as well when I talk about .NET. So we were bitten a lot. Let's just say Silverlight or what it was called, Link to SQL, not Link to SQL, but I think it was Link to SQL. Just before the Entity Framework library, just before that, Microsoft released something almost 2 years before that, and they discontinued that. So basically, they were releasing some libraries and some things, and from what I have been told, it's not like that anymore. But it's pretty hard to continue to put your confidence into a language or a stack that keeps how can I say that? I mean, it keeps preventing you from advancing, and you are basically always rewriting your application because the update path to the next .NET version was not always easy. Sometimes it involved changing the entire version of the operating system. I mean, it was a 15 years of brutally repeating yourself because often the joke about the .NET ecosystem is it's made for a consultant, basically, because companies back then were always rehiring the consultant, because when Microsoft was doing an update, then yes, it means, oh cool, I will be able to charge to redo this same exact project in a new .NET version, for example. I was not a consultant back then, but that was the joke that was running. So at some point I decided to stop being an employee and just discover more like a Linux environment and things like that. So I really jumped into Node.js for some reason. I was already at the stage where I wrote this application for this SaaS. I was already building SaaS back then. I started writing SaaS in 2008, but believe it or not, I was doing that in .NET at first with SQL Server as my main database. It was working, decently correct. So basically, .NET was very hard to love, I would say, at some point, because it was constantly backstabbing you in the back. Node.js for me was kind of meh, I would say. That was in the same time that on the front end I started to do more and more React. So 2012, 13, 14 on the back end Node. So I don't really have much to say about that other than I live the dependencies problem of JavaScript and Node and things like that. And it was my issue with .NET was so recent that I could not really put my trust into something that was at least at that time going to backstab me a little bit like the .NET environment was doing. So and it was already popular in the ecosystem. The dependencies was a problem. It was the pre-promises time. I wanted to return to statically type language, so I was used to VB6. Visual Basic was statically type when you think about that. So and after that I was doing C#. So that's about that. In that time that I jumped into Go, and immediately I was right at home with Go. The tooling, the fact that it was statically typed, there's not much to learn as it was a small language. I was able to rewrite a couple of things. So, you are listening to this podcast. You know exactly what Go is all about and why you probably also love it yourself. And that was great. So I've done that for multiple years, and at some point, I just wanted to discover something else. So one of my friend was doing some Python and Django, so I kind of bifurcated a little bit and enjoyed. I will say that I kind of enjoyed the Django mentality of everything is included and things like that. But wow, Python is dangerous to me, and the dependencies aspect as well, the deployment, that was all preventing me from seeing myself continuing investing into this language for the long term. Because if we return to my personal criteria to choose a language, then I need to see myself building a long-lived software. I need to see myself still enjoying doing that in 5 years in the same project. And oh boy, if you have done some Python, you already know what I mean. I mean, even yourself quitting a project and doing something else for 2 months, returning to that project, especially in Django, I think, and you are like, "Whoa, man, what's going on in here?" I don't recall. It's like, yeah, it's a fun thing. So basically, that's my experience so far, and I've tried Rust a little bit, but Rust has such a learning curve that I don't. That this is what I was telling to John Arundel the other day. I not the last episode that I did with him, but previous the episode before that. I'm not doing low-level enough development myself to need to use the performance of Rust that would justify, climbing this learning curve. If that makes sense. I'm a product builder. I build software systems that are deployed on web servers, and I do most of the fun that I have is trying to come up with something that people will like and things like that. I mean, I'm not building OSs and drivers and whatnot, and I would still love to do that, but the embedded aspect for me is also complicated. Anyways, Rust is on the table for me at some point in my life. I don't know when exactly. I think it will be probably when I'm near the end of my career or stop doing development professionally. That maybe that will be the right time for me. For now, I jumped on this web backend, front end development a long time ago. Just being able to build a software system from scratch, the entirety of it, putting that into production. This is who I am. I am mainly building software as a service, but yeah. And here comes, Gleam. So this is this is something interesting that I think some Go software engineers might want to check it out, to be frank. So Gleam is a language that sits on top of the Beam OTP. So Erlang created this virtual machine a long time ago, and it's the same thing as you can compare that to Elixir. So if you have seen or tried Elixir so far, so yes, those languages kind of compile down to machine code that this virtual machine is able to execute. This thing is extremely performant and done for high tolerance web application and things like that. So compared to Go, I mean, in Go, the thing that is interesting is that you can build a binary and you can distribute that, and there's no virtual machine that needs to run this bytecode. It's not bytecode. It's basically just machine code that your processor can interpret at some point and be able to run and execute. So that is a major difference right away. And a little bit of a downside, if I'm honest, because usually I like to be able to to build my binary and just ship them. So this is one fantastic aspect of Go. But again, if you're not building a CLI, then there's not much use to that. If you're building a web application, then at the end of the day, your backend, your web server will run directly on the host machine, or might be running on the Docker container, which would have the virtual machine to run the Beam application. That doesn't not really make a huge difference in a sense, and you can also install the virtual machine natively on your host. That is not a problem. So from there, I mean, what they have done with Gleam, because let me contrast that with Elixir. So I've been playing around with Elixir for a long time again. I think I started near 2016 or so. 2016. Yeah, 2016. So something around those lines. This is also when I started with Elm and truly discover the functional programming. So arguably you can think, of some aspect of C# trying to be a little bit functional, but it has nothing to do with trying the real thing, trying to remove your imperative at and trying to put this fully functional at. So Elm for me was a crazy revelation that I love functional programming. This is the kind of things that allow me to create function and systems that are easy to return to. And now again, this is quote unquote, because you can also write some fancy one-liner in some functional programming language that yes, you might return to that at some point and says, oh wow, what are we doing in here? We are folding, mapping, reducing, filtering, whatever. I mean, so it's not Go. Go is extremely verbose. It's extremely there's not much that one Go programmer cannot tell about the program if they are reading a program. So you might open a file at some point, a Go file, and you even if you have never been in that program before, you will be able to tell exactly what's going on in here. In the functional programming world, well, even if you are the one that wrote, sometimes sometimes you kind of go a little bit too clever, if I can say that. But nonetheless, so Elixir, what was happening? So I created a couple of things. So Elixir to me is great, but again, if we return to what I was saying at first, I'm someone that build web application. So inevitably, I had to go with Phoenix, and Phoenix is excellent. It's great, but again, the amount of things that needs to be learned before you do anything is it's a lot, and it is dynamically typed as well. So even though this seems to call the action of compiling the Elixir code into the Beam code, and now that there's probably some static analysis, I don't know, there's probably some compilation checks that are done during this process that will warn you some error and things like that. It's not as a sound type checking or it's not really completely typed, I would say. So for me, it was difficult to jump into that. And don't get me wrong, I've built a couple of production small application in Elixir, Phoenix, and whatnot. Very great, very nice. But for some reason, I tend to always return to a statically typed language. And these days, I think that Elixir already started to introduce, some statically, some typed optional format, or at least way of declaring your things, a little bit like TypeScript is doing with JavaScript, I think. I would dare say. And please take that with a grain of salt. I haven't done Elixir in a couple of years now, but it seems that they are doing that. But when I discovered Gleam the other day, I was like, okay. So we are in a type safe environment, statically typed. The tooling is excellent. The tooling of Erlang was a very turn off point for me, because I also tried Erlang at some point. A lot of people was saying that they were not really enjoying the syntax and whatnot. Personally, I was finding that okay, but for me the tooling killed that. Elixir was great. The tooling is all fine and whatnot. Again, I don't really have anything majorly negative to say about Elixir, because I haven't ran a long time software with that. And that's the same for Gleam. Don't get me wrong. I'm just starting. It's just that now the excitement that I have and the feeling that I have was almost similar to what I had when I started doing Go, when I finally liberated myself from this Node application. And I'm not saying that I'm liberating myself from Go code. This is not what I'm saying. It's just that at some point you are researching some excitement in your programming life, and I've been doing Go for 11 years ish at the moment. I'm looking for something different, and the tooling of Gleam is great. So basically they built a compiler in Rust, and there's a language server already there. You can run your tests. Yeah, there's already a code formatter and whatnot, and editor. Their editors are handling properly, the connectivity with the language server and whatnot. I mean, it's what you are expecting these days, I would say, from a new programming language. So those are there. This is great. The fact that it's very simple. So they seems to have adopted the Go mentality of trying to keep it simple, even though there's not as much things in the standard library as Go. For example, there's a couple of external things regarding database connectivity and running a web server or building a web application and things like that. So those are fine to me, at least at the moment. Even though I really enjoy Go, the HTTP package in Go is just crazy. When you think about that, it's almost to the point where it can be compared to a very lightweight framework at this days where we are at the moment. It's crazy that you have this guarantee that your web application will probably never have some kind of compilation error in the future and whatnot. So that's a little bit on the downside for Gleam, but the functional programming aspect is extremely refreshing. They seems to have took their times to build the proper language resemblance to C, and still trying to keep some kind of functional syntax or things like that. Because at first you were writing Gleam like you were writing, for example, Haskell or Elm. Basically, it's an ML family language. I personally really enjoy that syntax. I think there's a lot of people that are using Gleam at the moment that do love this syntax, but like the author of the language says, once they decided to change to be more like a C-style language. This is mostly where this thing exploded and things like that. And it's interesting because we are seeing Richard Feldman with his rock, the language called rock, that seems to now want to adopt also a little bit like the C style for some aspect and things like that. So it's interesting. So if you don't know, rock is like it's a functional programming that wants to be a little bit like general purpose. I've been following Richard for a long time now, because again, I was a huge fan of Elm. Elm for me was hands down the best programming language, the best experience with the programming language I've had so far. And with the limited time that I had with Gleam, it's already clear in my mind that I think I found something. I think I found something that I will really enjoy for the next decade. And being deployed on the Beam and OTP give me now access to a couple of very interesting building blocks that, yes, you can have that, all the real time and concurrency aspect of Go, but there is so much built in OTP and Beam that you cannot really compare those two. I always liked a little bit more the monolith aspect of an application, being used to be on smaller team and things like that. So to me, this is a very great fit compared to having 1,000 microservices that at the end of the day could have been way less than that. But that to me feel a little bit refreshing. The actor model as well. So the concurrency, if you don't know how it works, each processes. So you can think of a process as a little bit like a Go routine, but it's not really that. It's completely isolated, but those things can communicate with each other, and there is this supervision tree that ensure that the system stay alive and whatnot. So it's what they call the fault tolerant aspect and things like that. There's a lot of things that you need in a typical decently sized web application that they are handling out of the box, due to the excellent design of the Beam and the OTP. So they were really onto something, and this is what I always liked about Elixir, and always wanted to discover this world. But this, yeah, the syntax, but it was really the framework, and I haven't done any web development yet with Gleam. It's just that this seems to be aligned a little bit like we are in the Go ecosystem, where privileging a little bit more of a SQL, raw SQL aspect versus ORM, privileging simplicity versus having too much into framework and things like that. So I mean, it just seems to be nice to discover. Having a lot of fun, I would say. It's not that I'm not having fun with Go these days, but again, I mean, Go is like my old. I don't have the word in English. The things that you put on your feet when it's cold. It's comfortable. It's recomfortable. I'm, but at some point I need a little bit of excitement, and Gleam is providing that at the moment, because for me at least, there's a very good fit regarding the type of application, the type of system that I'm building. The fit seems to be there. If you I would encourage you to check it out. I know it's a Go podcast. I will of course continue to do some Go content and whatnot. It's not that. It's just that it's really a nice piece of programming language, and we are inundated of programming language these days, and it's pretty hard to decide, which of those deserved your attention and things like that. So for me, at least, Gleam seems to be a pretty decent choice, and I'm going to continue. So on that, happy coding.